Alright, what's going on, guys? Back here, this video will be poker tells. How to pick up certain tells that may indicate your opponent's bluffing or that he has a good hand. We're going to start with basic tells that, again, bluffs and being able to read tells all depend on the types of players you're playing against. When you see if you watch the pros, you and I would never notice something that's, maybe I notice a couple things, but they're so good and their tells are so subtle that, you and I wouldn't know the difference. But when you're playing this first tell, which almost everybody knows who plays Texas Hold'em, is that strong is weak, weak is strong. Very popular saying in Texas Hold'em. Someone who has a big hand, I would say, again, we got to go to the scale of skill level of the player. Say a pro is a 10 out of 10. Say someone like me is like a 6 or 7. I would say if you're playing like someone who's against maybe a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10, maybe just below your average Texas Hold'em player, maybe who plays once a month or whatever. With a couple buddies. This will apply most accurately and will be right most of the time. This is when they'll act weak and strong. They'll kind of be the first kind of tell that goes into this is, as I mentioned before in my other videos, they'll kind of be ignoring the action. They'll be sitting there kind of like the bets are coming around here. People to my right are acting first. I'll kind of be looking this way, maybe even engaging in a conversation with somebody else. Again, you got to be. A tell is almost never 100%. This guy could just really be having a good conversation about what homework they did for calculus 2, whatever it is, something about college classes. I don't know, just because I was playing with my buddies a couple months ago, and that would happen sometimes. But when they really appear to be disengaged, or the biggest tell that you'll see when it comes to them and they're not paying attention, is that they'll say, "Oh, is it my turn?" or "My bet." That's one of the most basic tells in Texas Hold'em. They have a good hand. They're going to act disinterested. They're going to act like they're not really paying attention again. They're acting weak. They're acting disengaged. Only when they go, "Oh, my bet, the pot's, the blind's 20. This guy for sure is raising at least 60." Or, maybe he's trying to trap, he's calling. But he has a good hand. You can pretty safely assume that. Second basic tell, before you come into, when you sit down at the table. If you're playing like a home game, generally you kind of, all the chips that you distribute, they're all evenly stacked when you start. But I didn't even mean to have this set up, but let's just say you're coming across a guy like that, and he stacks his chips like that. Let's say we're 15 hands in the tournament, so, he's collected some pots, and he stacked his chips pretty nice and neat. I would say it's pretty nice and neat. I don't know how you guys do it. But a nice and neat chip stack generally means a tight player. It means, a tight player just means I'll only call bets, when I have a strong hand or when I think I'm going to make the best hand. Just because they're more organized, a little more neat, that generally it just does. It's kind of a subconscious thing, symbolizes a tighter player. Again, these kind of tells, these basic kind of tells are for a level 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 player. Someone like me, I usually like to I actually do keep my chip stack kind of messy as I'm picking up when I'm playing against other good players like 6 or 7. So I keep my chip stack kind of like this, the one I just showed you, nice and tight. So maybe other players who do know this tell think I'm a tight player. I wouldn't say I'm a loose player, but I gauge towards loose a little more. I'm not super tight, but I play hands. If you guys know what suited connectors are, I'll probably do a whole video on that because I think that's a very cool concept and a very good hand to have, like 6, 7 of clubs. I play a lot of those hands. I play a lot of, 9, 10 offsuit, even if it's raised a little bit. So I would say I'm a relatively loose player. And then someone like this, if I just have this here, if this is someone's chip stack, say they won a couple pots, they won a big pot, they don't stack their chips, generally a loose player. Again, assuming they're, not subconsciously fooling people. I fool people with this one because it's one of the most basic ones when I know I'm playing against other decent players who know this tell. I keep a neat stack, and I generally play a little loose. I've only once or twice I've faked. When I want to play tight, I make my stack messy and I don't clean it up as well, so people get the image again that I'm a loose player, but I play tight because maybe I see 2 other players on the other side of the table are real loose and they're just throwing in their money here, like when they have a good hand or a bad hand. So I'm going to be playing tight and not be wasting my money in those pots. So neat chip stack, tight player, loose player. Oh geez, my camera works terrible. What else is there? Last basic tell. Let's say the flop comes, these 3 cards. I honestly have no clue what they are this time. I know what my hand is. That did work out. Here's what I'll show you an example first of what I would do. So it's King 8 Queen. Here's what I would do with that flop if I was looking at it. Like, I'll try and kind of hold it on an angle. I would go like this. The flop just comes out, just seen now. I'd go like that. I would kind of look away real quick. You can assume what that kind of means from what I told you. Again, kind of acting disinterested. It's along the same lines. But the basic tell here is that people who maybe about, I would say no more than a second and a half to 2 seconds looking at the flop, they like the flop. They know what they have in their hand here, which I would have done. I have ace king and a pair of kings. Top pair, top kicker is a good hand. I would know what hand I have, and I would look away from the flop. People who stare at the flop. I've seen this. Reading these tells online. It's kind of funny. They want the card. They're hoping the cards will change. Obviously that's just sarcasm. But they're staring at the flop just like why can't this flop be better? King. I have 6 4s. Doesn't match me at all. I have 2 undercards. That's basically what they're kind of doing. Or a lot of times, and another not terribly weak hand, but they could be on like a draw if they're staring at it for a while. If they stare at the flop, then go like this, then look back at the flop for a couple more seconds. Say there was a 6 and an 8 here, even though it's a queen 8 6. Say this was not here, and that was a 6. If I see him do that, I might put him on a hand 7-5 or 7-9. I might put it on an open-ended straight draw. If there was like a 9 of hearts here, I might put him on a flush draw. Generally, people who look at it, look at their cards, and then look back at it have some sort of decent draw. Not all the time, but most of the time, again, like I said, if they're staring at the flop longer, even if I have a decent draw, like a flush draw, I don't have a made hand. It's nothing yet. So again, that would still indicate the flop missed me. So that's the tell to go forward there. I think that's all that's all the basic tells. I'm going to get into more advanced ones. Some that I've noticed myself just playing in like 6 months with other people. And that tournament I went to, I learned a lot just by playing for, one day, like 7-hour day. I learned a lot of tells that people gave away and a lot of things that I've noticed that make sense to me as a tell that I haven't necessarily found on the internet. I'm going to give you about 10 advanced tells. Maybe 2 or 3 of them are mine. The rest are advanced tells from the internet that I've seen, that I've also seen, that I didn't make up myself. Not make up's the wrong word. The ones I'm going to give you that I've discovered myself, I believe, are very true. So we'll get into the more advanced tells right now. So if you're a basic player, again, if you're gauging your opponent at a 4 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 players, look for those tells. Strong is weak, neat chip stack, messy chip stack, tight, loose, look away from the board, and look away from the board's a good hand, as well as like kind of disinterested. I'm looking, to the left, not acting like I don't care about the action before me, but really I'm sitting here waiting to pounce on that pot. So we'll get into the more advanced poker tells now. Okay, so first tell I'll go over is one that I've noticed, one that I didn't go on the internet or watch a YouTube video or anything or read a book to find anything about. And this can be very useful for the previous video, or maybe the second previous video, not the trick video about shuffling, but can be useful for engaging in pot odds. So remember when I was doing the pot odds scenario, I was assuming I was last to act and I knew the exact odds and everybody else was out of the hand. Say there's 5 people in the hand again, I'm maybe third to act. Say bet, fold, bet a 40. I'm sitting here. People who are going to call will kind of subconsciously, it's technically bad poker etiquette, but when you're playing at the level, that, of like 5 out of 10, 6 out of 10 players, they'll be doing this. It's bad poker etiquette to kind of be showing any signs of calling or acting. Like you should never be like this with your hands like this with someone acting before you, because that's an advantage to them or anybody at the table. It's not exactly angle shooting, which is like cheating in poker, but it's bad poker etiquette. But this one's kind of subtle. Not everyone calls this out, especially if you're just playing a nonchalant game. People who are ready to call will have calling chips in hand. So as you know, each one of these is 20. The bet's 40. They'll kind of just, they'll be decently paying attention to the action. They'll be going like this. So if I'm sitting over here to, I'm acting before this guy, I just take a quick peek to the left, see these last 2 guys, the 4th and 5th guys to act, the person before the dealer and the dealer who's on the button. See what they're going to do. If I see this guy's like this and the guy after him is kind of like this, kind of with his hands up, or maybe just, kind of hands down like this or something like not looking like they're going to fold. This is the most obvious one, kind of with your hands up. You're never going to sit here like this, and then when they actually get to you, go like that. These guys are ready to toss their hands in the middle. So, although I think this is ace king, I would never throw that away unless there was a big bet and I didn't make an ace or king on the river or on the flop. But so again, a guy with calling chips in hand that can help you calculate pot odds, like I said. So because you know exactly how much is going to be in the pot, you have a pretty good idea. This guy's not going to be holding 40 chips, so he can, when the action gets to him, set down his chips and go like that. So he's going to most likely call. So people with calling chips in hand after you take a peek to your left. You can gauge pot odds a little more. You can see who's calling. You can see who has a good hand, who's going to stay in the pot. Okay, next one, also one that I've kind of discovered myself, and I think is for the same reasons I told you in the past chip trick video, why people do chip tricks, is to, as much as you can, avoid getting in pots with the guy who's sitting at the table, going like this, repeatedly. He knows how to shuffle chips. He's most likely, more often than not, an experienced player. And I said in the chip trick video, if you're doing this, it gives off the vibe that you're an experienced player to other players, or you're an experienced player to your opponents. So when you see a guy kind of doing this, or if he's chip twirling, if he's took the time to master a chip trick, he's probably took the time to look up a little bit about poker and Texas Hold'em and learn how to play it. So you don't really, if you have pocket aces and this guy's in the pot, I'm not saying fold your pocket aces. You have the best starting hand. Go get all the money in if you have to. But if you have a decent hand, you see he's betting heavy, he might be a little bit of a better player than you. Generally, it's better not to get involved in the pot with him because he's going to beat you more often than not if he's a better player. So people doing chip tricks at the table, they probably know a little bit about poker as much as you can. Like I said, do not fold a super premium hand against them. But if you can, try to play as few pots as them as few pots with them as you can. And again, I picked that tell up myself pretty much, and it completely makes sense to me. I've heard some of my friends, they agree with it. I hope it makes sense to you. Obviously, I did it. I basically did it at that tournament I was at. And, guys who were just kind of sitting there with their cards would peek at their cards like this, real amateurish, the real way to peek it is to cover it up, kind of bend them, so make sure you can see it. You can tell what players are amateurs, and you can tell what players who have been around the table for a while. So try and get involved. I mainly got involved with guys who didn't exactly, didn't know what they were doing, not the guy who was sitting here shuffling stacks of 10 and 10. So guy doing chip tricks, try and avoid him at the table.